Everyone, welcome. My name is Charlie, and I'm the rector of St. Paul's, and I am so glad that you are here today. And that gets to the heart of my sermon and my time with you this morning. It revolves around the question, why are we here? Why are we here? Some of us lately have been here a lot, right? Over the last 3 days, we've experienced worship services. Monday, Thursday, we've washed each other's feet. We've experienced the Good Friday Passion. We've walked the stations of St. Paul's, learning about our racial history, naming and claiming those things we have done and left undone. We gathered last night for the vigil as we lit a fire, a new fire, a symbol of purity and newness, and then came in and ushered Easter in. Some of us have been on a long journey together through the season of Lent, 40 days and 40 days, 40 days and 40 nights we've journeyed together. So maybe you've been here a lot. Maybe you've been here a long time. Maybe this is your annual visit, which is fine, no judgment, not much judgment. Or maybe it's your first time. And all of those things are okay, because the question is still there for every single one of us, no matter why we're here. Why are we here? There's a poem that helps me, a poem by Connor Gwynn. What are we doing here? He asks. What are we doing here? I've always wanted to ask. When the flock has found their preferred seat in their perfect pew, and the acolytes are posed for action, when the organist's digits are in position, I want to step out on the deck of the nave and ask, where is this craft heading? Heaven is our goal. But more than clouds or streets of gold, we want Mary's poured out perfume. We want Lazarus and his resurrected eyes. We want to be free. We want to be whole. For some reason, this puts me in mind of a woman who was connected to one of my former congregations. We will call her Dottie. Dottie was a very kind and quiet, gentle, older woman, seemingly without a home. She'd often spend the better part of her day in our church lobby, and it was a space away from the heat or the cold or the rain. She'd sit quietly for hours, her long white hair pinned up tight in a neat bun on top of her head. The thing about Dottie, though, is that she always pushed around a shopping cart. You may have seen people like her. She always had it with her, down the street, through the doors, over the bumps of the sidewalk, in rain, snow, and sleet. You could tell it was very hard for her to push and to pull this thing around, heavy and cumbersome. But she was never without it. I could never see what was in the shopping cart because it was covered with a tarp. I imagined that in the shopping cart were things like blankets and pillows and cups or whatever. But I often wondered what other things might be in her shopping cart. What was she carrying around? What had she been carrying around with her whole life? Perhaps she carried around stories or experiences of whatever landed her in this position. Maybe she was carrying around experiences of being mistreated by a spouse or a family member. Maybe the shopping cart held stories of being caught up in losing a job or being trapped in some sort of complicated medical system that was not helping her. Maybe it was just story after story of being knocked down. No doubt she was carrying around a lot. The shopping cart contained whatever was necessary for her survival. perhaps bottles of water, but the shopping cart contained her past. So she spent her days in public lobbies, keeping vigil over her shopping cart, pushing and pulling it wherever she went. And I wonder if she ever wanted to let it go. No matter our status or our situation in life, we all have stuff that we carry around with us. Like Dottie, we have shopping carts filled with experiences from our past that we're attached to. Maybe it's memories, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's grudges, maybe it's hatred. Maybe the shopping cart is filled with things that we wish we could offload or burn or forget. Or sometimes we fill our shopping carts with moments we wish we could hang on to forever. That home run in the 12th grade, the performance of a lifetime, or the time when we could walk into a room and know everyone there. There's something about being human that makes us want to hang on. In the last couple of years, my siblings and I inherited our family home. It's the home in which we all grew up in, my brother and my sister and I. All over the house are images, items, stories, and stuff from our past. There are dishes and softball trophies, boxes of Christmas ornaments, and photo albums. And so when it first became officially ours, I, of course, began the process of cleaning out old closets and throwing stuff away. And I quickly found out that each of the siblings were not quite ready. We all want to stay attached to things in very different ways. I wanted to detach from this stuff and throw it away, rent a dumpster, clear out space for the new. My siblings were not quite there. Each of us has a way in which we manage our attachments. We all have shopping carts and stories. Mary Magdalene, who we heard from this morning, she had a story with Jesus. In John's gospel, Mary Magdalene is one of the women who is with Jesus when he is crucified. And in Luke's gospel, Jesus casts demons out of Mary. Remember that she was a woman, and women in first century Palestine were forced to bear stories of gender and identity that were not their own, so we can safely assume that Mary Magdalene was pushing a shopping cart of her own. But Jesus had offered her hope. Jesus had offered her hope. Jesus had offered a glimpse of a new identity. But listen to what happens there toward the end of the story. Evidently, Mary goes up and grabs Jesus, tries to hang on to him after she sees him. She turned and said to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Jesus says to her, do not hold on to me. And that's kind of harsh, don't you think, of Jesus? Do not hold on to me, he says to her. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, I've seen the Lord. And she told them that he had said these things to her. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had been there, I would have clung to Jesus also, right? How many of you would have done that? Safe thing to do. There he is, grab him. Don't let him get away. That's the first person that's ever gotten me. That's the first person that made me think that my life could be different. Grab him. So Mary hangs on for dear life. She doesn't want to let it go. She wants to put Jesus in her shopping cart. So, why in the world would Jesus say to her, do not let go, or do not hold on to me? And I think this is when we get to why we're here today, to learn how to let go. I think letting go has a lot to do with resurrection. Resurrection, the raising of Jesus from the dead, is about new life. Resurrection is not about returning to an old way of living and being. Resurrection is not about returning to our old stories and our old patterns that are holding us back and keeping us stuck. Resurrection is about moving forward. When Jesus wakes up, he doesn't hang out in the dark. He doesn't even stick around. He gets on the road and moves out and into life. Like many of us, Mary had been conditioned to hang on to her past, to her old identity, and to cling to it. But Jesus tells her to let go so that she can move unencumbered into a new life made possible in resurrection. We've all got a little bit of Mary in us. We all want to hang on. Or to put it another way, wouldn't it be easier for things just to stay the same? You know, I hear that every now and then in the church. Do we have to keep monkeying around with things? I hear. Can't things just stay the same? Why do we have to go around messing with stuff, changing things? Weren't things fine when we did it that way? Weren't things better when we did it this way? Why can't we just leave things alone? Well, this is why. It's because part of following Jesus involves being resurrected ourselves. This isn't about Jesus' resurrection only. Mary is resurrected too today, and so are we. Not just in some distant future, but right now. To follow a resurrected Jesus means to create space for people to feel included and welcome. To follow a resurrected Jesus means that we call into question practices that make other people feel on the outside. Even in this church, we have had to let go of some things. We've taken down symbols of white supremacy. We've removed marks that signal oppression. We've adjusted language so that all feel like they are a part of the story. We've moved things around to reflect a space of inclusion. Would it have been easier to leave all that stuff alone? Can the congregation say, heck yeah? But resurrection isn't convenient. And it's not about convenience. Just ask Jesus. Following a resurrected Lord demands that we let go so that we can open up. Following a resurrected Lord means that we have to be brave. And we have to risk letting go of that which is not generating life. In Buddhism, attachments, hanging on to things, not letting go, is considered a cause of suffering, preventing us from living fully in the moment. Like lugging around shopping carts overflowing with stuff, attachments keep us from moving freely into our truest selves and our truest selves together. Could it be that Jesus is telling us today that the practice of letting go has everything to do with life? If we were going to hold on to anything, it would be Jesus. Leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all alarms. Do not hold on to me, Jesus tells Mary in this curious phrase. So she does it. She lets go. And she runs wild and free and bursts through the doorway of her friends. And she says, I have seen the Lord. Mary not only is a witness to the resurrection, she embodies resurrection. Jesus is not the only one. So I come back to that question, why are we here? There's something about humans that makes us want to keep things, possess things, guard things, collect things. I do it too. But I've also found that a lot of change can happen when we stop hanging on to our past and follow Jesus into a future. So maybe it's not so important to hang on to Jesus, but to trust that Jesus has a firm hand on us, holding us so we can let go and be whole and free. And isn't that why we're here today? It's kind of hard to take the hand of a neighbor when it's filled with so much stuff. We're here to think about a future that God is imagining for our church, for our community, for your life, and for this world. A future in which all can flourish, a future in which we don't have to push around heavy shopping carts. A life in which we can all run wild and free, taking the hand of our neighbor and walking into a sunrise of light and life and hope. Why are we here? Heaven is our goal, but more than clouds or streets of gold, we want to be free. We want to be whole. May it be so.